Hey everyone, and welcome to this Marvel Snap tier list. We're going to be discussing the best and worst starter cards and Pool 1 cards in Marvel Snap. This has been by far one of the most requested videos that I've not yet made, and I'm so excited because this type of video is not only a lot of fun to make, but also I love seeing the community reaction because everyone's going to disagree with me, no one's going to agree with me, and that's actually part of the fun, and I encourage it. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, which ones you disagree with, which ones you agree with, and etc. Where would you have put certain cards? I absolutely would love to read it. I think that that's 90% of the fun. Moreover, I'm going to move kind of fast because I feel like tier list videos are often too long. So we're going to try and make this one snappy. So I'm going to give a couple thoughts on each card. We're going to move and rip through them and let me know in the comments what you think. And also, as always, join us on Twitch TV where we have a ton of fun. I'd love to see you there. But regardless, let's get started on this Marvel Snap Pool 1 and starter card tier list. First of all, Angel. Angel, I think, is an F tier card. Why? Wow, Alex. But there's not really too many destroy mechanics in Pool 1 yet. You really need Pool 2 to really start to get the deck building and the destroy decks working functionally with, Bucky Barnes, for instance. And so Angel, I feel like, is just a low tempo 1-2 that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Ant-Man is an S tier card. Hell yeah, Ant-Man is S tier because at this rank, you're basically utilizing cards that require like a lot of zoo type mechanics, and Ant-Man really takes advantage of those zoo style mechanics, right? He gets that +3 when there's 4 in the lane, and if you're in Pool 1 and 2, you're probably building a lot of zoo decks, right? I know I recommend a lot of zoo decks, everyone does, and so Ant-Man is a very strong card. I think Blade is a C card. He is a 1-3, he's a big body, but realistically, you don't have a lot of discard mechanic yet. He's very unreliable in discard decks as it is, and so even if you're doing a Pool 1 style discard, yeah, you need him, but like you can't reliably hit Apocalypse with him, so he kind of feels like a bad card even though he's a 1-3. Elektra is pretty decent here. I'm gonna give Elektra an A. The reason for this is because I think that Elektra counters a lot of Pool 1 and starter kind of decks, and so you're gonna get additional value from Elektra, especially when you throw her into an Ant-Man lane and he drops by 3. It's a really good counter to the zoo decks. I think Hawkeye is a B. I often play him a little more often in some other decks, but realistically, he's a 1-1 that becomes a 1-3 if you play on top of him. But if you're playing like Medusa, you have to play him blind in the mid, and the location might screw you up, so it's a little tricky at times. So Hawkeye, realistically, is probably our first B. Iron Fist goes as a C, but I actually put him ahead of Blade here. Iron Fist will give you some added reach. It lets you punch people into locations you might not be able to access. I think move decks are a little bit on the weak side in Pool 1 and 2, and even as you get into Pool 3, I think they're a little weak. We're waiting for some new cards to really make move decks viable. So I think Iron Fist is a C. I'm going to give Korg a good solid, he's an A+. He's above, are you going to let me switch this? Thank you. Korg is an A. He's near top of A. I think he's better than Elektra. He's not quite in the S tier yet, but adding that extra dilution to someone's deck is really annoying, especially for a 1-2 when they draw that card and they really needed their combo card. It's a nice little impact. And then we have Mantis. I think Mantis is a decent C card. I think that realistically, ordering this is getting a little funny here, but this is the correct order. But anyways, Mantis I think is a decent card. Drawing from their deck is really useful. However, consistently landing it's hard. The Guardian of the Galaxy effects are a little tricky. You can't really rely on them, so that is something worth noting. Misty Knight is an F. Unfortunately, until you get Patriot at Pool 3, Misty Knight is a 1-2, just has no ability, really doesn't make much sense. Clear F card. I think Nightcrawler is an S. Being able to access additional locations as Nightcrawler is super valuable. Also, proccing it with Angela is absolutely god tier as well. Nova, again, the destroy mechanics I think need work. Nova is a good card, but I would probably put Nova in the C tier, even closer to F. Better than Iron Fist though, but like the destroy mechanics don't really work until you get into Pool 2, I think. Quicksilver is probably an F card. I don't understand why you'd play. I do understand why you'd play Quicksilver. I'd actually put him above Angel, to be honest with you. Yes, having a consistent one draw allows you to play on tempo, but realistically, like, there's so many better 1 cards that kind of like give you that. Like even Mantis, you have her in your hand and like you take that shot of drawing a card from their deck, and that's kind of cool. Yes, you get the guaranteed Quicksilver, so if you have him as the only 1 card in your deck and you rest, you go 2-3 and whatever, and you curve better, then that's maybe worth talking about. But maybe, I do think he's a bit of a weak card. Rocket Racoon I think is going to be a C. I think it's a little better than Mantis because realistically you're going to get additional impact there. Drawing a card from their deck isn't quite as good as just simply having Rocket Racoon, but then again, missing the proc is a major big sad. Squirrel Girl is probably an A, a low A, high B kind of situation, because especially we're considering the ranks based on where they fit in pools 1 and in the starter pool. Squirrel Girl is an excellent zoo card that allows you to essentially, zoo out with Kazar pretty effectively. I'd probably switch her up with Elektra. I don't think she's better than Korg, but realistically there is a lot of synergy. She just occupies a lot of space on the board. Uatu I think is better than people give credit for. I'll give him a low B. Uatu, obviously, knowing the locations in advance, I think can be way more helpful than people realize. But then again, he is a little low impact for a 1/2, and he does not guaranteed start in your hand. Yondu is a B. I like Yondu. There's some arguments against Yondu because yes, it's a disruption card if you hit a combo piece, but if you hit a useless card that they weren't going to really play anyway, like you throw Yondu out and they've already played a turn 1 card and you hit one of their other turn 1 cards, all you did was improve their card draw because you just basically thinned their deck and got rid of something useless. So it actually works against you sometimes as well. So Yondu can be a bit tricky, but it's God tier when he hits a good card. Angela is S tier and it's at the top of the S tier. There's no doubt about it here. I'm going to switch these two around here. I'm having trouble switching them. Angela is the best card in the game currently, even if this is a full, pools 1, 2, and 3 list with all cards in Marvel Snap. I think Angela is likely to be the best card in the game. Armor at pools 1 and 2 is probably an A tier card. The reason for this, a 2/3 is good tempo. Protecting your Squirrel Girl, Elektra, Korg, your Ant-Man, Nightcrawler is extremely valuable. I would actually put him above. I might even put him at the top of A as I think about it because that protection at this point of your career is absolutely huge. Cable is a C. Now, I know I place Cable in a lot of disruption decks, but realistically, you are pulling a card from the bottom of their pile. That means they were never going to draw it anyway, so you're just kind of getting a peek into what their deck might have. And if they've even, if you pull their combo piece, now you know they're never getting it and they never had it in the first place. But realistically, it's a little less consistent. They were never going to pull that card anyways, so, what are you going to do? It's one of those cards that has some high impact, but it's a little bit RNG dependent. Carnage is a B. He's going to be on the low B side because, again, we're lacking the synergy that I think makes Carnage really good. Yes, there's synergies with Squirrel Girl and stuff like that, and you're going to get location synergy like Central Park where squirrels end up everywhere, or the raptors or the ninjas and stuff, and Carnage really benefits from that. But until Pool 2, you really don't have a lot of synergy in the Destroy decks. I do think that Colossus, though, is an A card. It's going to be near the top of A, right beside Armor here. The reason for this, he's a 2/3. It's good enough tempo, but he becomes invincible, impossible to move. And I think that Colossus is one of those cards that as a new player, you can rely on to help kind of correct mistakes with locations, especially if you don't have Scarlet Witch yet. I think that you do need Colossus. Really helps you to kind of iron out locations. Domino is a low C. Maybe I even put her above the Nova here. Domino is a 2/3. I mean, is good enough. Having her consistently as a 2 drop. Domino's often played in like Cerebro decks and other decks that are kind of dependent on the power. And so at this kind of stage of the game, actually, she probably drops a little low under the Nova. I'll leave her. Domino's not bad. It's not the worst thing you could be playing right now. Forge, I think, is a probably a low C as well. Under Domino, Forge has some synergies, but if you're not playing those synergies, Forge is completely useless. Does synergize well with like Mr. Sinister, multiple man, stuff like that, but it requires very specific decks. Kraven, I think, is a low C as well. Kraven probably goes above the Blade. Realistically, Kraven's one of those cards that does not get enough value. Gets +2 every time a card moves into a location. Move decks are kind of off meta. There is a move deck that I did feature in my beginner series, and I do think it's okay, but move decks as a whole aren't the best. And then you have Lizard. Lizard is actually a 2. Why does it say 2/4? He's actually better than that. I think Lizard is a high A card. Maybe I'm gonna actually put him underneath the Colossus. Lizard's a 2/5, and it says 2/4 here. I don't know why, but anyways, it's a 2/5, and I think he's a really good tempo card. And the disadvantage of being a 2/2 is problematic, but it also forces the opponent to deal with it and zoom to that location, which is something you might want. We have Medusa, who's a 2/2 that procs mid. I do think that Medusa is a pretty decent card. I'm going to put her at the top of B, especially for Pool 1 and starter decks. It is a lot of value. A 2/4 is pretty consistent. It's basically, it's like Lizard except without the disadvantage. Mr. Sinister requires very specific synergies with the Forge. I'll put him under Forge, actually. They really can kind of only be played together. Realistically, Mr. Sinister making a Sinister clone, it's not the worst value in the world as a 2/4, but you're occupying a lot of space on your board. Multiple Man's kind of the same. Multiple Man kind of goes above the Forge and Mr. Sinister because he does have added value in the move decks, but realistically, Multiple Man is probably one of those cards that, doesn't really see too much play at these types of levels. Scarlet Witch is an S tier card. The reason for this is because you need location correction. You don't have a lot of it in Pool 1 and 2, Pool 1 and starter. So it's very important that you're able to kind of get rid of locations that are problematic, especially when there are featured or hot locations that you just don't care about. You can get rid of them and take advantage of that. Sentinel, I think, is a Sentinel. I almost want to give A, honestly, because I think Sentinel's really good. I'll give him Sorry, S. I'll give him high A. I think Sentinel's a 2/3 is pretty good. As a new player, you're probably thin on cards, so sometimes you have crap in your deck that you just had to play to finish the deck, and you don't really want to play those cards. And Sentinel kind of keeps your rotation moving, so you have valid plays. So I think Sentinel is pretty decent, especially from a new player perspective. You get this card, and it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to well, at least I have Sentinel, and I don't have to play this garbage that I have in the deck, and I don't really want because I don't have a big enough card pool yet. Shocker's F tier. Shocker sucks. Why would you play Shocker when you can play Sentinel? Shocker, unfortunately, is highly reliant on Patriot, which is unlocked in Pool 3. Star-Lord, oh man, Star-Lord kind of goes with Rocket Raccoon. Probably, I don't like him. I think he's worse than Rocket Raccoon, but realistically, he's one of those cards that it's kind of problematic because he ultimately, you're going to miss it 90% of the time, and it's going to feel absolutely terrible. You should hit 33% of the time, but it feels like you miss 90% of the time. And I think Rocket Raccoon for one is a little less risky, but obviously less reward as well. Wolverine, Destroy Mechanics, not exactly great. He goes in C. He's a decent enough card. He's low C, maybe even F, honestly. Wolverine's close to F, which is kind of sad. Bishop, I think, is about... Bishop's probably a low B. He actually got nerfed to a 3/1, and ever since that, he is a mediocre value play. Played on 3, played with a pool 3 card like Magic and extending the game. You can get a little more value out of him, but realistically, he used to be S tier, but now he's about B tier. Captain America, I think, is high B tier. He's a good card, especially with the Zoo decks. He works really well with the Squirrel Girls, Elektras, and others to get a little bit of extra value. Cosmo is A tier. I think he goes above the Lizard. I think he's about here. Cosmo can disrupt a lot of combos, and although you won't see a lot of combos until you start moving into Pool 2 and 3, he can still be very devastating to a lot of Odin decks, which I'm sure are pretty popular right now. Cyclops, unfortunately, is pretty bad as a 3/4. I don't even like playing him, but... yeah, he's bad. I'm giving him F. Cyclops is an F as well. Simply put, because without the impact of Patriot later on, where all cards with no abilities get +2, he feels pretty bad. Deathlok is a low C, works well with clearing lanes and stuff like that. Yes, he synergizes with Nova. I'd actually put him probably above Nova here, maybe above Mr. Sinister. I'd actually put him above... He actually ran up quite a bit here. Never mind. He is a high C because as I thought about, I'm like, hey, he's actually better as a 3/5 than we given him credit for, especially for lane clear when you have those raptors get thrown in your lane, you want to get rid of them or anything like that. He does a good job of clearing up a lane. Doctor Strange is a C card, just not a lot of value in the move decks unless you do Forge into multiple man. And then you have Groot. Groot as a Guardian of the Galaxy is going to go with the others. I think Groot is probably worse than Mantis than the others. He's a 3/3. He feels absolutely terrible to play. And, Domino's a 2/3 that's guaranteed in. And again, 33% chance. It feels like a 90% miss. Groot's pretty bad. Hulkbuster's not bad. I actually don't mind Hulkbuster, but he's in a very specific style of deck. I'm going to give him a low B. The reason for this is because Hulkbuster does not occupy a part of your lane, which I think is really important, especially when you're playing Zoo decks. So if you're stuck for cards and you're playing a Zoo style decks, Hulkbuster gives you a little more value on the board while not occupying and kind of ruining your ability to play into specific locations. On-reveal decks are quite popular right now, and therefore I do think that Ironheart does deserve to be in the B tier. I'd probably put Ironheart above Carnage, under Yondu, especially if you're considering that as a 3-drop, it's 6 value. You probably play in the lane that you're giving up, but also you can play Odin on top and get an additional proc as well. Lady Sif is pretty low near the Blade, probably a little higher than Blade though, probably above these movement cards, probably below Domino. Yes, Lady Sif is good for proccing Apocalypse, but that's pretty much it. Mr. Fantastic, I think, is pretty damn good. I'm going to give him a mid-A range here, probably above Cosmo as well. The reason for this is, yes, he's a 3/2, but he's 6 overall as he kind of reaches out through that middle lane. He loses value if you don't play him in the middle lane, but overall, I do think that Mr. Fantastic gives you that added reach, just like Nightcrawler, which helps you to kind of secure positions and lanes that you might not be able to reach into otherwise. Morph is pure gambling. I do think Morph is a C card. I do think that ultimately he's probably above Nova, Iron Fist, Kraven, Blade. He probably goes between Kraven and Blade. He's a high-risk play. often low reward, to be honest with you, and if you whiff on his play, it's a big tempo swing and a miss. So he's a very high risk play. He can be an S tier card when you hit the one you want, but realistically he's half the time pretty frustrating. Punisher I think is a high A card. I'm probably gonna get him underneath Sentinel. The reason for this is because Punisher, especially in pool one and starter kind of decks, a lot of people tend to play Zeus decks, and the result of this is Punisher gets a lot of +1 value by being in a position where people zoo into him and he gets additional value. He's kind of the counterplay to Captain America. Captain America, you want lots of people in your lane. Punisher, you want lots of people in their lane, okay? And then you have Swordmaster, again, a high tempo play, a 3/6, but unfortunately discard doesn't really work very well. I think he goes underneath Lady Sif, underneath the Forge and the Mr. Sinister combo, and ends up in mid C. Wolfsbane, I believe, is an S tier card. She's just a great card, especially when you're playing these Zeus style decks. You're often going to have positions where you have three cards in a lane. You're going to have the Ant-Man, Angela. You're going to have someone else. You can pull Nightcrawler in, proc the Wolfsbane. You can actually proc Wolfsbane and then move Nightcrawler out. There's so many options, especially when you consider the mobility of a lot of the cards and at this stage with the Nightcrawler. Wolfsbane, I think she's a great card. She is an S. Enchantress is a great tech card. I think she goes into high A, probably above Cosmo, probably above Mr. Fantastic, under the Colossus. The reason for this is because I think ongoing cards are very popular, especially considering that Iron Man, hint hint, is probably going to be an S tier card, and I think that kind of value is countered by Enchantress. The tricky part is that Iron Man comes out on 5, Enchantress is a 4, so if you see the Iron Man come out on 5, do you hold the Enchantress on for a turn 6 play with a 2-drop? It feels like bad tempo, but if you can completely wipe out Iron Man, they basically played a 5 cost for 0. So that's pretty damn impactful, right? So Enchantress, I think, is a mid A tier card. Jessica Jones, I think, is S tier. It's just too much value. It is like impossible to understate how much value Jessica Jones is. In fact, I would consider putting Jessica Jones above Scarlet Witch because I think that as a 4/8, she is just way too much value. She's so good. The disadvantage of not being able to play in that lane isn't that big of a deal, especially when you consider that a combo with her is often playing her in one lane and then White Tiger in the next, and then playing on Odin on top of the White Tiger, and the Tiger that's thrown over does not impact Jessica Jones, right? So I think that is a very good thing. Kazar, this is Aranis. He's actually a 4/4. Kazar is actually an A tier card. He actually probably goes near Punisher here. The reason for this is because Kazar realistically upgrades all the 1-drops, all the squirrels, and those zoo decks are very popular right now. Moon Girl is a decent enough card. I do think that Moon Girl is a pool 2 card, so this might actually be Aranis here. Regardless, I think we got a couple pool 2 cards in here. I think Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl. I might be mistaken. I can't even remember. Anyways, Moon Girl here. I think Moon Girl ultimately is probably a high C, probably underneath the Deathlok here, and I think that she's a good card, but realistically, I think that she only really works well with Devil Dinosaur. Devil Dinosaur himself is actually a pretty decent A card, probably goes above the Mr. Fantastic. Yeah, probably goes above the Kazar as well. I think that Devil Dinosaur is probably a near top tier card. But again, a card that I think requires a very specific deck archetype, which I did cover in a video, by the way. And if I can remember, I'll link it up above so you can watch it if you're interested in seeing a Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur video. That's pool 2. Anyways, Namor is a very awesome card. I love Namor. Namor is one of those cards I think is tricky for players to play. I'm going to give him an A as a 4/10, an S, specifically as a card that goes in ongoing deck lists. He can be a bit challenging to play, but having a 4/10 in one lane and forcing them to have to contest it while you're ensuring you're winning the other two can be huge. I actually really like Namor. Sorry, I said Namor. It's Namor. And I think that Namor is an excellent card and one that's worth keeping an eye on. I bet you I rank him much higher than others, but I do think Namor is an excellent card. Strong Guy is an F. Strong Guy sucks. The Thing is an F. Thing sucks. White Queen is a low A. The reason for this is because a 4/6 is pretty high tempo. I do like it. Pulling their highest kind of mana cost card out of their hand, not out of their hand, you just replicate it so they keep it in their hand, I think is super valuable. You know if they have their combo piece by that point in time, and also if it's good, you can play it yourself, right? Which is pretty cool. I had a lot of fun with White Queen. Abomination, as much as I want to put him in F, I think Abomination is a 5. As a 5-drop is actually pretty decent, and I think that he might actually go... I think he goes here between Domino and the Lady Sif. The 5/3 Blue Marvel is an S tier card. He slides up here probably closer to Angela. He's probably one of the best cards in the game right now. He used to be a 6 cost and now he's a 5 cost, and it works so well with other cards like Onslaught and obviously the Ant-Man Nightcrawlers and the Kazars and stuff like that. So ultimately a very good card. Gamora, following the Guardians of the Galaxy style thing, I think Gamora is a little sus. Probably put her above Moon Girl under Deathlok Cable, but realistically Gamora does have the impact of you know, if you do connect with Gamora, it's an absolutely massive play, but unfortunately she'll also be susceptible to Shang-Chi, but then again that's pool 2, so I don't want to worry too much about that. Iron Man is an S tier card. There's no question about it. Iron Man is absolutely S tier. Where he goes on the S tier, I bet you he goes right beside Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel, I think, is a little stronger as a 5 play than Iron Man, considering you're playing starter decks in pool 1. But Iron Man still an excellent card, countered by Enchantress, but requires an Enchantress turn 6 play. And if you play someone like America Chavez on top of the Iron Man, it's basically double value. So he's a very high value card. Claw is, I think, better than people realize, but also worse than I think he is. Like, I think in my head Claw's better. He's probably a high C and that's it. So we'll have to see, you know, what we can do from there. Do I give him high C or do I give him high B? I think I might actually give him low B. I'm going to give him low B. I think low B is where he ends up. I don't know if I agree with myself here, but we'll go with it. I do think that Professor X, unfortunately, is a low B. I know a lot of people want me to give him a little bit more love, but realistically, Professor X is one of those cards where, like, you need pool 3 cards to really make them work. Like right now when you're playing, you're like, I have Professor X and I'm locking down location. You are gambling. You're just throwing them out there and just like praying that like the guy doesn't play into the same lane or something. Your Professor X plays right now are pure gambling. Don't pretend like they are. They aren't, sorry. And it isn't until you get Rescue from pool 3 or Daredevil from pool 3 that like Professor X starts to make more sense, because then like you have some sort of like insurance against whiffing the Professor X play. But until then, like, he's good, yeah, like, it feels great to land, but you are gambling with Professor X. Spider-Woman, I think, is an absolutely fantastic card. I think she's an S tier for sure. I think she's better than Namor, sorry. I think she's probably better than Wolfsbane. I'd probably bring her above Scarlet Witch. I think she sits underneath Jessica Jones. This is where I'd put Spider-Woman. I think she's an absolutely fantastic card. I think that White Tiger's an A card. I think White Tiger is very good at this bracket, especially when you consider that she can be played with Odin. Odin and White Tiger is an absolutely formidable combo. Where I would put White Tiger though is kind of tricky. I do think she goes under White Queen. I'm thinking about this A list here. Like, I think about actually bringing Lizard down, but I don't think so. I think White Queen is proper at the low part of A. I think Chavez is an S tier card, goes above Namor, probably above Wolfsbane as well, above Scarlet Witch, above Spider-Woman and Jessica Jones Nightcrawler. I think I determined myself right now that she is the 4th best card in your current pool, because I think Chavez is absolutely fantastic, and I don't think there's any question about it. I think Chavez is truly remarkable. Apocalypse is a really weird card, because I think that he's better than we're giving him credit for, but we don't quite have the pieces for him yet. And the thing about Apocalypse is that I think he's ultimately a B. The reason for this, and we're in B, I think he goes mid B. I think he's better than Ironheart, less good than Yondu, because yes, you can discard him and he's a good play. He becomes a 6/12, you discard him once, it's pretty good. But it's also extremely choreographed. Like, the opponent knows you have him in his hand. Your opponent knows the value of him, so is able to retreat if necessary. So there's like a huge, like, you can't trick them into playing Apocalypse, right? You can't do that until you get Dracula later on in pool 3. So Apocalypse is a good card, but you don't quite have enough tools to like catch someone by surprise yet. So he ends up falling into the mid B range. Now we've got Heimdall. Where do we put Heimdall? I lean towards a B. Probably better than Claw, better than Bishop, better than Carnage, better than Ironheart and Apocalypse, not as good as Yondu. The reason for this, I think that Heimdall is really fun to play, and you've seen me pull off some insane Heimdall plays in my clips, in my highlights, in my shorts. But I do think Heimdall does not have enough tools right now, and I do think that move decks as a whole don't have enough tools right now, and so as a whole, you know, Heimdall ends up being a mid B. All right, now we've got the Incredible Hulk, and I do think that Hulk is a low A, comes under the White Tiger. The reason for this is because he's actually a 6'12". This is a little erroneous, and I actually realized that Chavez is a 6'9", not a 6'10" as indicated here. So when you actually compare the two, you have a 6'9" and Chavez a 6'12", and the Hulk, you'll recognize that yes, you're guaranteed to get Chavez on 6, sorry, and yes, she guarantees that you you kind of curve better throughout the rest of the game, but you are very likely to draw a 6 card by turn 6. So Hulk as a 6'12" is a pretty good play, especially when you consider that we've all lost by less than 3 power, right? So that 3 power is not insignificant, right? That is a significant 2-drop, for instance. You know, that's what Colossus is. So you basically have an extra Colossus in Hulk compared to Chavez, which might be all the difference to winning your game. And now we've got Odin, and I do think that Odin is an S tier card. I would put Odin here, and I would probably place Odin above Ant-Man as one of the absolute S tier cards. I do think he's absolutely, truly unbelievable. He's one of the best cards in the game, and I think that Odin, especially at this pool level, when you consider the synergization with White Tiger, White Queen, and others, he's a damn good card, and Wolfsbane is another great card that works well with Odin. Just a ton of value. All right, 2 more cards. We had to adjust the zoom ever so slightly to get the rest of the cards in. Onslaught. Onslaught, I think, is a low... I changed my mind. I think he's a high A. The reason for this is because he synergizes very well with so many cards. Specifically with Blue Marvel, he synergizes with Kazar. He's just a good card. He's a big enough drop as well. He's actually not a 6'6" anymore. So there's some discrepancies in the tier list. I do apologize. But anyways, as a whole, I do think Onslaught is a good card. He's just not quite good enough as a 6-drop, and he really requires placement in the lane with Kazar and Blue Marvel and other ongoing cards to really have a truly high impact. Whereas I think Odin can go anywhere where there's a Wolfsbane or White Tiger or whatever and has a huge impact, right? So I do think that ultimately Odin is a far better 6-drop than Onslaught, although Onslaught in the right ongoing lists does do a good job, especially when you consider an Onslaught Iron Man combo. You're effectively doubling the effect of Onslaught and anyone else in the lane, and then you basically, you know, it's just... doubling the Iron Man doubling is pretty significant. So I don't want to sleep on Onslaught, but I do think that there are better cards. Like, for instance, Spectrum, who I think is a better card. Spectrum, I want to give S. I want to give Spectrum S, but I can't because I recognize that we're just not quite there yet on Pool 1. Once you get into Pool 2 and 3, I think she becomes an S card. But really, I do think she's under Sentinel. She's under Punisher, but she's better than Onslaught. I think that the +2 that Spectrum gives, she's actually a 6'5" right now. I think that it really does help to solidify game wins. People don't expect Spectrum to drop. People don't expect the big 2-drop to come across the entire board and just buff up lanes that they thought they had already won. Spectrum is a huge surprise play in so many circumstances, and I really do think she's an excellent card in this game, and she only gets better as you level up your collection score. Guys, thanks for watching. I got another video down below that I would love to have you watch. It is an absolutely phenomenal video, and I know that, you know, if you're interested in stuff like this, you'll be interested in stuff like that as well. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Feel free to disagree. I look forward to it, and I can't wait to see you in the next Marvel Snap video.